Good evening and welcome to the Foxborough Conservation Commission meeting of Monday, March 20th, 2023. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted in person and via remote means in accordance with applicable law. In-person attendance will be held in the Gala Meeting Room, Town Hall. The meeting may also be accessed remotely via Zoom. For login information, go to Foxborough Mass Gov Department Conservation and click Public Remote Participation. The meeting is also broadcast live on Foxboro Cable Access. And good evening and welcome. We begin at 7 o'clock. It's time for public comments if we have any.
Get a email.
Would,
Yes, we got the email.
since it's on TV.
It's all right, he's just asking about the letter.
Okay, all right. Dave, do you have some minutes you want to do real quick, like?
We have the minutes of February 6, 2023. And that was a brief discussion on the West Street Dam and 61 East Belcher Road continued hearing. And the Route 1 work notice of intent. And 65 Mechanic Street, that's a Hockomock YMCA. And there is one part of this that I found was not quite the information that was discussed. So I could be wrong. Nope.
Nope, you're wrong, or is?
It's not these minutes. It concerned 18 Goodwin Drive, and the information that was in the minutes was not the same as what was actually stated by Mr. Buckley in explaining the project. But it's not this one here. Other than that, the minutes of February 6, 2023 were okay.
Oh, can you make that correction that needs to be? There's a
Goodwin
correction
Drive
need-
wasn't discussed in that one, so it was probably the previous one,
Oh,
which I do not have. Sorry about that.
so you're making a motion?
Second that motion.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? March 6th?
Don't exist yet.
Okay. We'll cancel that one.
Just got the minutes mixed up.
You want to?
You want to do the East Belcher? The East Belcher?
I think that's going to take a little bit longer than
Okay.
minutes. 15 Willow Street, do we want to set up a site visit for that? Jane, are you zooming in?
I thought she was here.
She's on. She is.
She is on. Okay.
He is there, but muted.
Jane, you're muted. All right, just, while we're trying to get her on, anybody have a date that they would like to get up to Willow Street?
We looking at a weekday or a weekend day?
It's whenever we can get everybody there.
Okay. This Sunday looks good for me.
Yeah, I could do this Sunday too.
Okay. What time?
Morning, 9 o'clock, 9:30.
Church.
11.
Afternoon.
You're a good Christian.
Well,
Yeah, afternoon's fine.
2 o'clock?
Sure.
All right. Can anybody else make Sunday at 2?
Sure.
Can you post that, Diana, please?
I haven't been posting site visits lately, especially this doesn't have a hearing or anything attached to it.
Okay.
We don't
All right.
have to.
Okay, all right. Good,
Meet at Willow Street?
yeah.
Okay. I can do it.
2 o'clock.
Okay. Okay. Being 7:05 PM, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, the Conservation Commission will open a public meeting on Monday, March 20th, 2023, at 7:05 PM in the Gala Meeting Room, Foxborough Town Hall, 40 South Street, and via Zoom on a notice of intent filed by Michael Matos, Walnut Street Joint Venture Developer, LLC, for the construction of a proposed housing development consisting of 3 residential buildings with associated parking, grading, and utilities on Walnut Street, Assessor's Map 133, page 23. Portions of the proposed work lie within 100 feet of a resource area. Mr. Buckley.
Mr. Chairman, good evening. For the record, my name is Bill Buckley from Bay Colony Group. With me this evening is Frank Spillane from Spillane and Spillane. Also, Jesse Johnson from Weston and Sampson is dialing in. And as you stated in your notice, we're here to, we filed a notice of intent for the construction of a 200-unit facility, which will be for, it'll be age restricted and also have limitations for revenue. And it'll be at the corner of Walnut Street and Route 140. And I'm going to just call up drawing right here. Let's see if I can share this.
They are?
Yeah, they're going right up.
So this is the drawing, and actually, it's for you on that you have, it's a 01. It's probably about the third sheet in, but I'm going to put it up here on the screen so I can talk to it. So I think everybody's familiar with this. This is Route 140 right here along the top, and toward Foxborough to the north is to the left as I'm going. This is Walnut Street right here, and off to the bottom of the page would be toward the Country Club. Over here to the right is Route 140, and this is the ramp to 95 South. So this is a 15.6 acre parcel of land. It's at the southeast corner, as I just described, and it's owned by the town of Foxborough. In May 2022, we filed an ORAD with the commission in order to delineate wetlands on and immediately off the site in preparation for this project. And what the commission decided at that time there was several areas of BVW, which I know it's hard to see here, but you can probably see it better on your plan. It'll show up better when I zoom in a moment. But there's some wetlands over here on the east side of Route 140, on the other side of the street. There's some wetlands. These are all bordering vegetated wetlands, by the way, over here right at the intersection of 140 and Walnut. And then you go further up Walnut Street, and again, there's BVW here as well. And these wetlands all connect further downstream as they head toward Robinson Brook. In addition, there's an isolated land subject to flooding on the property, which is located right here, and that's over here on the northwest corner of the property. And then there's some non-jurisdictional wetlands, which are basically a drainage ditch that runs along the left side of the property in front of ours. So if you were coming in off of Route 140, taking a right onto Walnut, it's a ditch right here. So the topography of this site, it pretty much pitches from south to north or southwest to northeast. So this is the high point up here, and then it drops toward Route 140, and actually down in this corner right here is the lowest point. There's about a 50-foot elevation differential on this lot from the highest to the lowest. And it's important to note, when I'm talking later about wetlands, wetlands. So even in this area here where we have this isolated land subject to, it pitches this way. So it's odd. So the wetland on this piece is at the high point almost along the northwest property line. So let me stop sharing there and move to the next.
Excuse me, Diana, should that door remain open?
The cleaning guy's out there.
Yeah, I know, but what's the technicalities of,
They can, I mean, there's no sign that says that.
okay.
You'll
all
just
right.
get the guy
Okay, I just
vacuuming in the
didn't wanna-
background, and it won't- we
I
can't
didn't want
hear
to get in
people.
trouble, legal, okay.
Don't know what happened here.
It's fine, there's nobody, I mean, anybody that comes in can come
Okay,
in.
all right.
Sorry about this. Okay, here we go.
Don't you just love computers?
Love it. Love it. I'm going to have to get out and go back. So actually what you have in your hand, if you could just look at it, is the rendering I gave you. And that's the site conceptual master plan. And what that does is I'm showing you that because I just want to give you an overview of the project. It's the colored small one I passed out
Yeah.
earlier.
Yep, I've got it.
And that's the, and it just gives you an overall of the project. As you're looking at the drawing over there on the left, on the west side of Walnut Street, that's where our wetlands are located. And you can see on the drawing here toward the bottom where it shows existing wetland to remain undisturbed. Okay, so let me keep trying here to get out of here. I might have to get all the way out and come back. I apologize for this. Okay. Let me get out for a sec here.
That's what more people want to do, you know?
It should pop up here in a sec.
It's being from the state.
Don't know why it's not.
Pull that out. It's actually, it's in here. So, no. No, you're right.
I think this is the clearing.
Right,
For them.
yeah,
One more time.
Is that like right?
yeah, one side of it. Yeah, there's like over there. Seems
Okay, good. All right. So I'm going to talk to this right here because it's so much harder to call up the other one for some reason. But this is what you have in front of you. So this shows it, this shows the project. There's two entrances coming in off of Walnut Street, which is just off the edge, but if you look at your drawing, you have it. So there's this most easterly, because north is to your left as you're looking at the drawing. This would be the main entrance coming in, and there'd be a loop driveway all the way around. And then over in this area here, there's an emergency access driveway that is further up on West Street that will be gated and gravelled. That was requested by the town's public safety department. And let me just, I want to go down further here. If you go to your sheet C106. So this is a zoom in. I'm zooming in for the, over here on the portion of the site that we're most interested in. So again, here's the wetlands closest to the intersection. Here is the wetlands that are further up Walnut Street, and here's the isolated land subject to flooding that's on the corner of our property. So I've highlighted those in green. I know it's a little bit hard to see in yellow, but in yellow and on your drawing, there's a dashed line. That's the 100-foot buffer zone, which I'm kind of outlining. So even when you look at this 100-foot buffer zone, there's very little of this project that falls within 100 feet of the BVW. There's some of it up here, there's a small amount here, there's a little bit in this area here. And then the roadway itself, for the most part, lies within it, and I'll talk about that because there'll be some activity happening there. Up here, you can see this is the isolated land subject to flooding. Isolated land subject to flooding has no, excuse me, has no buffer zone, has no buffer zone under the Wetlands Protection Act, and has no buffer zone under the local bylaw. The work we're proposing, we were talking about it a moment ago, is this site is going to be served by the town's low-pressure sewer system, which hasn't been constructed, but has been reviewed and approved again by the commission. That was in 2020 as well. We filed a request for determination, and the sewer will run from this driveway right here all the way to Central Street. So that's one of the components of this that will be built, but is not part of this filing, has already been done. The site will be served by municipal water. There is water already on Walnut Street, so the water will be coming in through the site and looped through the site. So it will be coming in at this driveway and this driveway here. Those areas do lie within the town, within the buffer zone of the BVW. But again, all that activity, almost all of it is taking place on the pavement. Gas will be brought into the site from the west here. It's a little bit further up the street on Walnut Street. That's going to be brought down to the site and brought into the site. Electricity is through overhead, and that will be brought down on a pole and then onto the site. So all of that takes place within Walnut Street, except for the small portions to cross the ditch to get into our site. The stormwater system is down in this area as well. So there's two stormwater basins. This is Basin 1, which is located to the west, again, which is north is being to the left. This is Basin 2. So the way the system is designed is runoff will go into one of these two basins. The basins are connected, and it will be treated through 4 bays. There's a 4-bay here, there's a 4-bay here, and then it will go into the infiltration basin itself, where it will be captured and then slowly released out through 2 outlets, which are down here along Route 140 here and here. Those are called, which they're just long pipes with holes punched in them under a stone bed, and then they'll sheet flow down into Route 140. As I mentioned earlier, the topography here is from the west to the east, so everything is flowing toward Route 140. You cannot do direct connections into the state. You haven't been able to do that for a couple of decades now. So that's the way it's handled. It just sheet flows toward the drainage system that's located on 140. So what I'd like you to do next, if
Do you
you could,
anticipate very much flow going on to 140, or is most of it going to be captured?
it will be captured. If you take a look at the stormwater report done by Jesse, and if we get into more detail, he can go over it. We're required to maintain the rate of runoff at or below the existing condition. So it will be that at or below. For the bigger storms, there will be a lot of water. For smaller storms, not so much.
Okay.
Any other questions on this piece before I move on to the next?
Bill, could you explain that again?
Sure.
It-
So,
Right now, it's wooded, and you have a lot of absorption and infiltration,
Yep.
and even if it's frozen, you have a certain amount running off, but even on the big storms, like the one we just had, the 2-3 inches, the rate of runoff would be fairly slow, and there's no leaves on the trees, so how would this be the same as what, it's concentrated in one area?
right. So what we have to do, so what we do is that the study line in this particular case is along Route 140. And so you're right, we're taking it, what's going now, sheet flowing, and then concentrating it into this particular area. But there's really no alternative. We just can't run a level spreader for, 1,000 feet. So we're allowed to do that, but we're not, what we're doing is we're not putting it into the end of a pipe, a 12-inch or a circular pipe, let's say, where it would just go out directly. So it goes into a level spreader. If you go up on Route 140, heading toward Rentham, go under the Route 1 bridge, look to the left. Anybody, that's the Patriots parking lot. Have you ever noticed along in there, there's like a big stone area there, that's a level spreader. So what it does is, instead of it plowing out of that into the street, it hits that, and there's holes drilled in it based on the flow rate, and it allows it to come out at a slower rate, plus the stone dissipates it as well. And then the basin fills up and will retain the water until, it's a balance. So the size of the basin is based on the outflow. And these basins are pretty big because the outflow is pretty large because of what you said, because of the slope. You have a lot of slope. The soils are not the greatest soils, and you're taking all the trees off and putting in a lot of impervious area. So it definitely doesn't mimic the same condition, but it mimics it close enough that it complies with the regulations. This has been reviewed by the town's peer reviewer. In this case, it's TEC, for compliance with the DEP stormwater standards. And other than some relatively minor comments they've had, which will be reflected, the changes will be reflected in the next set of drawings, which you'll see. It is in compliance by their opinion. That makes sense? That was a lot.
No, it makes sense. It just seems unusual for that concentration of water in that small area all of a sudden. Has Mass Highway Department looked at this and agreed that you could be overflowing the catch basins just beyond that? That flow underneath 140?
I don't think this has gone to Mass DOT review yet. Jesse, can you jump in here and confirm or deny that? They will get to review it. They do review the stormwater. And when you apply for in this particular case, there'll be an access permit, plus they're applying for a signal permit, or the town is applying for a signal permit. We'll be applying for an access permit, an indirect access permit, because we don't directly access it.
So, hi everybody, Jesse Johnson, Wesson and Sampson Engineers, and I was in charge of making sure the design, as it was mentioned, was in full compliance with local and state standards for stormwater. And one of the things that we did, because we are directly discharging towards the right-of-way from Mass DOT, was we over-designed the system by quite a bit, actually. There's rainfall amounts that Massachusetts currently says you have to adhere to. And then there are the rainfall amounts that we hear people talking about that will be coming down the line that will be required to, but are not technically on the books yet. We actually folded those into this design and used the more realistic, frankly, stormwater runoff rates that we're all going to be seeing that account for the change that's coming. Basically, the bigger storm events is where you see a lot higher rate and higher volume coming. So we incorporated that. And then the other part is, as it was mentioned, we have to make sure that post runoff rate is less than pre, but we also did the volume. So we designed this system to reduce not only the rate, but the total volume of runoff, which is another thing we know Mass DOT sometimes requests. Then the other thing that we did is, you can see there's 2 outlet points that were mentioned with flow spreaders. That is because there's 2 intake points along the right-of-way, ultimately 2 catch basins that are divided by a high point. So we're trying to make sure that we split the runoff going to both of those catch basin inlets to mimic what's going there now. So we did a precondition analysis for each of those intakes on the Mass DOT right-of-way, and then mirrored that on the post-development design for release of the runoff from that bottom basin. Hopefully that answered your question, but I can still answer anything else if you have any more.
It's fine with me. It's understanding it with the volume in the example of a 2 or 3 inch storm, and this was developed, that probably would fill up. But it sounds like you over-designed the basin, volume-wise, capacity to hold. That's basically what he said, right? Okay.
Yeah, we over-designed both basins essentially, and as it was mentioned, we have these interconnected and working together. So that first upper basin will take a big portion of the runoff of what's coming uphill of us. So we also accounted for that as well. There's certainly topography and dwellings residential lots that are developed upstream of us, if you will, that we had to account for, as well as our runoff that we're generating from our project. So we folded all that in, designed that first upper basin, then designed an outfall pipe from that would get to the lower basin, so that you've got a belt and suspender approach to the stormwater, full well knowing that Mass DOT might try to take exception to it later, but given that we over-designed it and reduced volume and rate, that we feel very confident that they won't have any pushback with that.
Okay, then,
That's fine with me.
any other questions on the stormwater?
What's the high groundwater elevation for this area?
Jesse, what was it? Was it about?
So the test holes that were done recently didn't record any down to 10 feet, but then there was older test holes done where it was observed down to 7 feet. And we took a conservative approach and made sure that we didn't dig the bottom of these basins any closer than 4 feet to that groundwater. So you're required to have at least a 2-foot separation from groundwater from the bottom of your basins. We have at least 4 feet plus. Again, another conservative measure we put in to make sure that these would perform as designed.
Okay.
Will these serve as infiltration versus retention? Is that part of the requirement of stormwater, is to get that water back in the ground?
Jesse, you want to talk about
Yes.
the required recharge volume?
Yeah. These are designed to recharge. They are 1.5 times, I think, is over the minimum required for recharge, but we needed to make sure that we were taking some credit for the recharge to just make sure they're performing the way we wanted to. Otherwise, they would have gotten even bigger. But we did use a recharge rate that's acceptable for the soil type. Bill had mentioned the soils aren't great. It's what's considered a C-type soil, with A being the best. So you don't get a lot of credit for recharge, but you do need to figure out what that is to also make sure that these basins are going to empty out and get ready for the next storm. So we had to show with whatever our ponding elevation is, that it would empty out within 3 days, in theory, which is what's required to make sure that it's available for full capacity for another storm that might roll in right after it.
There's a required recharge volume that we have to meet for every project.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm assuming there's a maintenance program all set up for these.
Want to talk about the maintenance component of it, Jesse? It's in the stormwater report, but
Sure. So we did provide in the stormwater report a draft of the operation and maintenance plan, and that's based off of what type of BMPs are proposed on the project, and give your standard annual frequency for what to inspect, how often to inspect, and also give a map of where each of the controls are, where every catch basin is, where every manhole, the outfalls. And that will get folded into the overall operation and maintenance plan that will need to be done for this facility. Because they're going to have a generator on site. They're going to have age-restricted, it's an age-restricted facility, so they'll have other considerations for the population that they have on the premise. So it will have its own separate O&M for just stormwater, and then, again, that'll get folded into a larger facility-wide O&M as well.
Okay, thank you.
Just one last question, but the isolated land subject to flooding, when it fills up, I haven't walked this for many years before we decided to sell this property to the town. Does this have some way it flows out towards Walnut Street? Based on when I walked this, it's been quite a few years ago.
yes.
But
So-
nothing like an intermittent stream?
So right in this area here is where it has where you'll see, you can see some indication of it. So that looks like where most of the flow is when it does overflow, and it flows, looks like it flows toward the drainage ditch that's out there. But there is no hydraulic connection,
So it wouldn't be called an intermittent stream?
no.
Bill, how far up does that ditch go? So it follows Walnut Street. Does it make it as far, does it go past, does it reach High Street? Does it go that far?
No, I think it goes up to the first house on the left as you're going up. And then it becomes all landscaped.
So I mean, all right, that's fine, fine.
there's a sidewalk scheduled for this
Thursday at 12.
Thursday at 12,
Okay.
so if anybody's interested.
I would love to, I can't.
So, any more questions on this particular section? I just wanted, if you can go now to go to sheet L130, which is probably the third to the last one. And again, what I'm showing you here is, if you take a look, and I don't know why
Connects in with the catch basin.
I'm getting this.
This way.
Yeah, that's better. So this is the landscape plan, and I'm just showing you this, and the next sheet is the rest of the lot. But this shows you here how the landscape plan will be along this edge here. You can see there's quite a bit of landscaping. A lot of oaks, maples. What else is there?
Well, I can jump in. There's American holly,
Yeah,
red
holly.
cedar.
So, and
Serviceberry.
arborvitaes, there's a decent number of arborvitaes because of the, again, one of the issues we have here is screening, so even along this edge here where there's just no homes across the street, well, and that's not fair, because the old Aries home is right across, but there's arborvitaes in there as well. So this is a landscape plan that shows it. I haven't gone through the whole list, but I did go through a lot of them to see if they were native species. They appear to be largely that. So you can see that. You can see if you look down here, I know it's a little more difficult. This line right here is the isolated wetland line. So you can see we are working fairly close to it in this area here, but it's mainly for landscaping. It's not for the driveway itself, which is in this area here.
What's growing there now? Is there anything there?
It's, from what the landscape architect, he doesn't like it. It's scrubby material. I'm guessing this was an old farm.
Okay.
This whole portion of this area of 95 and 140. If you look at the old plans from 95, back from the 60s, it shows a lot of farms. So this was probably some type of farm at that point, and that's what you have in there.
It was the Hersey farm.
You have a mixture of deciduous and coniferous.
All right. I guess, so I'm looking at, I've been looking at plans, I've been staring at C100 and how it butts right up against where the project is, and I'm looking on the plans, and it looks like you have green zone in between there, so like that, okay, now I see it, you're spelling it out. So you're planning on putting, how wide is that, about 20 feet, 10 feet, something like that? From the gravel road to right where it butts up against the,
Jesse, how wide, what's the closest point right in this area here between the actual driveway and the isolated land?
So the closest point we get with any proposed impervious surface, whether it's the driveway or the location for the totes for the trash disposal, is 25 feet. We do show temporary clearing and grading to establish that roadway and that driveway. However, the driveway is all bermed, so there's no runoff directed towards any of this wetland area. It was also noted, I think Bill had mentioned, that the isolated wetland is uphill of us, which is true. So we don't direct anything towards it by the pavement being curved, but also just the natural topography. And then again, the limit of clearing that's shown here is really to get a buffer established and get these new plantings in. The closest grading point to the wetland is about 10 feet away, 10 to 15 feet away.
So I think Jane is having some technical difficulties, but I know, and she was concerned about, she had asked in the ANRAD meeting, like, for there not to be any alterations within that 25-foot zone, which have been observed previously for some 40B projects.
So Jesse, can you address that?
Yeah, that was expressed to us early on as well. We had a staff meeting, and what we were really challenged with was getting this access drive, this loop road, that's essentially serving as an emergency access all the way around the property to fit and still maintain that 25-foot offset. We do have a couple pinch points, if you will, like this one that we're looking at right here, where it does get a little bit closer. But I didn't know that if Jane had realized and if everybody had realized really some of those design features that we had just mentioned, which is that we pitch everything away from it, so there's no long-term issue of degradation of that wetland because we wouldn't be contributing to it with any stormwater runoff. And then the temporary clearing needed to establish the driveway is only needed to plant these new trees in to help establish a buffer and then just establish the grading. Then it's all going to grow back. So you will have a full 25-foot buffer after construction all the way around the project. It's just a temporary disturbance to get it established.
Hey, but by that logic, I mean, you're disturbing it to leave it undisturbed.
Right, like it,
Well, we're disturbing it
Undisturbed would
to
be
establish that access drive, and then we're going to make it better by putting in some native plantings and more robust plantings than what's there.
Could the turn, so, it's my left, I don't know what is that, I think it's north going toward that end. If that curve came in and then you just cut that curve, I don't know, 25 feet shorter and just move the whole road over 25 feet, and I realize that would impinge on some of the ancillary, features you're hoping to put in this property, would that not satisfy what you're trying to do?
It could potentially, but those ancillary features are the site amenities. Essentially, that's what we worked the hardest to gain. The buildings we put down towards the lowest elevation of the property as best we could, and then we wanted to get the amenity space for the people to have some recreation area, have some area to get outside and congregate. That we wanted behind the buildings in a safer location, and so we wanted the access drive to kind of circle and frame them in, and to keep it where it is. You can see where it kind of undulates in relation to that isolated wetland. We didn't think that just that one pinch point where we're getting closer to 25 feet was going to be impactful because of, frankly, that resource area doesn't appear to be a high value resource area. And again, it's uphill of us and it's only an isolated wetland. It's not a BVW. So we kind of factored that all in to land on the design that you have before you.
I know it, I mean, an isolated land subject to flooding does not have a buffer zone.
I get it.
And the 25 doesn't apply, it only applies to BVW and bank. But Jesse, can we move some of that landscaping and grading so it's a little bit tighter in this area? So that it's not right on top of it?
I could probably get, what about a 10-foot no disturb in that area? If you want to hold some portion off of the wetland, we could probably get it to 10 feet. And that would give me, at least in that one spot, 15 feet coming off that edge of the pavement to get the grading established and get those trees in.
That be,
What's the minimum width of that access drive required?
the minimum
It's
width
20
is,
feet.
it's 20 feet, that's a fire department requirement.
Is that 20 feet right there?
And
Yes.
that's 20 feet right there,
That's 20,
yes.
okay.
Plus the fire lane, or does that include the fire lane?
No, I think it's 20 feet, including the fire lane.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just that one area. Any other?
Yeah, okay, like at River Ridge, up in the back, that wetland overflowed, but we couldn't really see it. But at least you put in a culvert underneath that road so that it was flowing quite a bit. And it's a good
Yeah.
job. What about this isolated wetland? I didn't quite see that you got something under the access drive that's not going to prevent damming it.
So Jesse, can you talk about how we're gonna culvert the ditch here under the two different driveways?
Sure, and it's a good point. We showed something initially in the design that's before you now that at least show that we're going to put a pipe underneath the driveway. We obviously are crossing an existing drainage ditch. We understand we got to accommodate for that. We just dug into the design of that a little bit more, and likely are going to land on probably a box culvert, a small box culvert, given how shallow that ditch is. It varies roughly from about 1.5 feet to, I think, at the deepest points, 2 foot of depth. So we'll probably have a box culvert with a 12-inch or 15-inch opening, 2 to 3 feet wide, so that we can drive on it, not have to have a lot of cover over the top of it, because it's right at the edge of the road. So that was one of our challenges. But we will make sure that we meet the capacity of that existing ditch with a new culvert that goes in. And that will allow that flow to keep flowing down the ditch. But also, it's worth mentioning, we do capture a lot of the runoff that's going to that whole ditch area, if you will, that's coming from the site as it exists now, and we're intercepting it with our project. So it's going to fall into some of our pavement areas and go into our conventional drainage system, go through the stormwater basins, and then ultimately get discharged towards Run 140 and bypass Walnut Street. So we're essentially going to take some of the current load on that Walnut Street ditch and shift it somewhere else. So that'll just help us to make sure that design going in for these culverts is going to work better.
Well, according to your C-104 plan, which is up on the screen, it appears that you're going to allow the water to go underneath the driveways and open ditches like it does now. Now it's not going into your basin system.
That's right. So we are going to maintain that flow still in the ditch. What I was saying is there's an area that's captured on site existing that goes towards that ditch that we are going to be picking up and basically sending it to the basins. Not a part of it, but a portion of it, more downstream or downhill of the isolated wetland area. Some of that topography as it exists now tilts towards Walnut Street, and we're going to capture and change that. But everything that's related to the ditch that captures upstream from this isolated wetland will not change. So I think if Bill had mentioned from that A6 flag, you can see the natural topography. It sends it over to that other little finger that comes into the parcel, and then eventually gets into the ditch. So we're going to pick it up with a culvert crossing right there, essentially, and get it underneath the gravel access drive. And then it'll go back to the open ditch before it gets to our next driveway. It'll go to a closed culvert, and then it'll open back up to the ditch as it flows down towards Route 140.
This will be a modification that's as a result of discussions with the ZBA, with the town's consultant, that Weston and Sampson is going to make, and which we'll submit to the commission in preparation for our next meeting. We're still going through, again, dealing with the peer review stuff. And so this will not be a final plan, and this is not the final meeting, of course. So you'll see this next iteration, what Jesse's discussing, and we'll get that filed hopefully in the next 2 weeks. Well, hopefully the next week and a half, actually.
Yeah, we'll get it in by next week for sure. One of the other things that got added in was the water department asked if we could basically expand the replacement of the water on Walnut Street. So we had connection points at each of our driveways to extend it into the site. The water department asked if we close that loop, if you will, and replace the 8-inch water that's between our two connection points on Walnut Street. So we'll have another stretch of new water that's not shown on these plans that will obviously show on the new plans, but all within the paved access way for Walnut Street, nothing outside of that.
It'll be in here.
That's right.
Anything else?
So some of the work's in the buffer zone here.
What's that?
Some work is mostly here in the buffer zone. This is isolated, and then there's some work in here, and nothing here.
Continue.
Yeah, so I think the next thing, if we can go to C100, which will be one of your first drawings. C100 is the It shows the limit of clearing. But it also shows the silt fence and erosion control. So the erosion and the silt, this erosion and sediment control will be controlled by normal things, the sock, the sediments be down in these areas here. It's hard to see. And then down in these areas here, again, protecting not that it will never get to the wetlands over here. And as we stated, it's not going to flow uphill, but it does protect sediment from leaving the site, either onto the 140 layout or to the Walnut Street layout. So, and if you want the sheet C500, that would be the one that shows you the silt sock and sediment fence. So, just as a quick recap, the actual alteration taking place, excuse me, within the buffer zone is about 4,500 square feet, which is maybe less than 0.5% of the entire site, because such a small portion of it falls within the 100-foot buffer zone of the VBW. At its closest point to the BVW, the gravel drive is about 65 feet away, and the grading is about 60 feet away. And again, it's on the other side of the street. So the wetlands are on the left side as you're looking at the drawing, and the alterations taking place on the right side. As Jesse said, from the ILSF, we could probably move that to give at least a 10-foot no disturb, and then we'll still augment that with the plantings of the native species. So I think that completes our presentation, and we do not have an order, a notice of, we don't have a DEP number. I checked it earlier today. They haven't even assigned it yet, although they have received it. So of course, we can't ask for closure, which we wouldn't anyways.
All right. Any other questions up here?
No.
Will there be another chance for a sidewalk besides Thursday?
I'm sure we can absolutely set up a sidewalk for you if the commission wants.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to take a look at it. There's no way I can do it Thursday, but.
Yeah,
Me either.
that's the big one. But if you want to do it otherwise, you can just contact me. And we've marked the center line of the road out. Not that you'll be going in much unless you just want to. But you can clearly see the roads coming in, and we've marked out the buildings. And of course, the wetlands are marked.
If you do go there, though, the police chief has requested no parking on Walnut Street. Plus, there's some kind of a ditch there. I think you'd fall out of your car into the ditch.
Yep.
Do we have any questions or comments from the audience?
You do have that one letter that came in.
Yeah. Do you want to get my official reader?
Pretty sure. All right, I'd like to read it to the record. We have an email from Maria Schuster and Edward Galley to Jane Sears and the members of the Conservation Commission, dated March 20th, 2023. The subject, Walnut Street 40B Housing Project Buffer. Dear Jane Sears Pierce and the members of the Conservation Board, we have a few concerns regarding the wetland and companion buffer zones. 1, the wetlands were tested during one of the driest summers and during a water ban. We request that another percolation test be done to more accurately reflect the current wetland zone. 2, we are concerned that the current proposed woodland buffer is not deep enough to support mature upwards of 60 feet or 60-foot trees, especially at the higher elevations along the North High Street residences. We feel that without the support of the forest structure, the remaining trees will be less able to withstand the elements. Dry summers offset by heavy rain periods and high winds are creating unprecedented stress on trees. The current forest behind our property already exhibits signs of this stress. This phenomenon can also be witnessed along the median of 95 between South and North High Streets, where numerous trees have fallen. Clearing was done on either side of the median for utilities supporting the Sylvan development on Fisher Street, in turn undermining the wind buffer the median trees relied upon. Planted Planted buffers are useful to support lower elevations and provide lower elevation screening and habitat, but aren't sufficient enough to replace the stability provided by a larger mature arbor. We ask that you request the most substantial woodland buffer possible along the wetlands and along the property line facing North High Street. 3, black walnut trees were once so prevalent in the area that early settlers relied on them for their nuts. Currently, the species is in decline due to harvesting and infestation. There are currently a handful of these trees thriving and bearing fruit each fall. We ask that special consideration be given to preserving these trees wherever possible. We regularly view wildlife feasting on these nuts in the fall. 4, we ask that you review the Walnut Street Development Public Comment Letters 1 and 2 submitted by 18 North High residents in support of a larger buffer and refer to the Zoom calls leading up to the 2021 RFP to hear additional testimonials of such support. That's it.
Thank you. Did you get a copy of the
I did,
letter?
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Diana, when is our next meeting due to?
April 3rd.
April 3rd, okay. Somebody want to make a motion to continue till April 3rd?
I'll make a motion to continue the endorsement 10 on Walnut Street to the next meeting of April 3rd.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Thank you,
Thank you
gentlemen.
very much.
We have order of conditions for 61 East Belcher. Diana, you have, and did Jane ever get in, or is she still have?
She's, I think, not
Okay.
able to comment. I think she's watching, but not able to comment.
Can you hear me now?
There she is.
Whoa, yay! No video still, but that's probably a good thing.
What's that?
Your video's
I
not
said
working.
no video still, but that's probably a good thing.
Jane, do you have any comments that you want to make before Mr. Buckley leaves about the Walnut Street?
No, I don't. Just the 25-foot no activity zone. It was observed in Nadia Estates and the, can't think of the name of it, the one that's off of Constitution. Is
Carrie
it
Lane.
Constitution?
Carrie Lane.
Carrie Lane?
Carrie Lane, yes. I can never remember the name. At least. And I don't recall what they did over at Fisher Street.
Yeah, we met it. That was BVW over there too, though.
Okay. Any other comments for now?
Not for me.
All right. So Diana, do you have the order of conditions?
I do. She emailed it to you guys.
All right, Jane, I know you had some comments for the East Belcher order of conditions. You want to,
Sure. For the order of conditions, it's basically just a straightforward order of conditions and a boilerplate attachment A.
I couldn't hear.
I can't, sorry,
The
can you
attachment
get closer
A-
to your mic?
Is not loud enough?
No.
Hold on. So boilerplate order of conditions. I'm closer. Better?
Yeah.
And attachment A is boilerplate, basically. I sent it out late, I'm sorry about that. But it says before work can proceed, and I can't start my video, so the host keeps asking me, it's not working for whatever reason. So it's your usual attachment A that requires before building that certain things be done, including, all of the permits that would be required for accessing the back of the property.
All right.
And I think I also put down boundary markers for the 25-foot no activity zone at the front of the property there.
Did you get a copy, Mr. Buckley?
I'm looking at it now, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Jane, the only thing I'm looking at is number 29, Appendix A. Sorry, Paul. Number 29, excuse me, Appendix A, limit of work. Want me to put half-inch diameter steel rods 4 feet apart. It's still a operating facility, unfortunately. We're fixing it, but if I did that, it really doesn't do anything in this particular case.
Yeah. Would it be easier?
So are you looking at attachment A?
I think
Yes.
that's what I'm looking at, is attachment A.
Okay.
It's 20.
I
Would it be
sent it
easier
last
if you-
minute. I'm sorry I didn't send it to you.
I'm
Be
sorry.
easier to read from this?
Obviously, you got it. You got it, though. So you say number 29?
I just gave him the copy, Jane. He's,
Number 29. And if we could,
Let's see, 1/2 inch steel rebar rods. I'm sorry, I missed that. That's a little bit over the top, isn't it?
well, yeah, I think so, but.
No,
but
no, I
it-
didn't mean to
But more
include
than that, is, putting an orange construction fence along the 100-foot buffer zone line, or the limit of work line even, I guess it's not a big deal, limit of work line.
It's just the limit of work line.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's not going to interrupt the.
no, you're right. I
Yeah.
was thinking the buffer zone. No, you're right. So can we just
I
eliminate
can
the
take
last?
off, I can take off, rebar fence. I can take off the sentence that talks about the 1.5 inch diameter steel rebar rods. Like I said, this is the boilerplate. And just that sentence, and keep the no disturbance of any kind is permitted beyond the LOW.
Yep.
Diana, do you have the signature page over there?
Yeah, and in the end, I added the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife letter because it states that they need to approve a turtle plan, I believe. And a plan was submitted, but I don't have any information whether they approved it or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but that's a good, that's a good comment. We have to do that.
So I am including that as part of attachment A so that it will also be recorded with the deed, against the deeds,
Yep.
deed, whatever.
I have no other comments.
okay with it? Then? Thank you. Everybody else happy with it? Somebody want to make a motion to sign the order of conditions?
I just have one question, Mr. Buckley.
Yes.
As we were standing there, and Pete was there too, there was a lot of pavement, crushed up pavement there. In that buffer zone area, disturbed area.
Yeah.
Is that going to be removed and put regular dirt that vegetation could grow on the sides? They could reuse that material further in for their parking areas
We're talking about, we were standing at the top of the slope looking down, right?
and underneath us
Yeah,
before you hit the gravel further behind us. But there was a fair amount there.
yeah.
And based on the photos, it seems like they must have got a deal fulfilled. And they can be reused someplace else where they're parking their equipment,
Yep.
helping on, any drippings and stuff like that.
So that
But it
area,
doesn't grow grass on the sides of that basin.
yeah, that's gonna be the basin. So
I
that
say,
area-
that's the detention basin,
that's all
right?
gonna get taken out. And then the basin slopes will be put in, and then it'll be vegetated.
Oh, good. Take
If you look at the plans,
material out of there?
yep, that's all gonna come out, and then we're gonna scrape the bottom to get down to the gravel, and then there'll be, the outside will be loamed and seeded, and the inside will be, with a bioretention mix and seeded.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Yeah,
Okay. So, anybody want to make a motion?
Bob, before
Yes,
that,
sir. What's that?
the plan of record that you're approving was not signed by either people who stamped it, which would be Mr. Buckley and Mr. Leslie.
we'll sign it.
Thank you.
It will get signed.
We usually
Good
don't
point.
sign it until everybody approves it, because I don't want signed plans floating
I know,
around out
we've
there.
gone through this before. We need a signed one, though.
Right, I understand.
The second one.
Yeah, the second one.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Somebody want to make a motion?
Sure. Make a motion to issue an order of conditions for 61 East Belcher Road, DP number 157620.
Do I hear a second? Discussion? All in favor?
All right,
Opposed? All right.
Thank you very much.
Oh, before you leave, Bill, I want an outside question.
Okay.
okay. All right. Is there a day of the week that's typically better for you?
Yeah, he hurt his back.
Okay.
Yeah, he collided with another player. He plays on Friday night. It's Friday night pickup game.
Okay.
Yeah. Going for the fly.
Okay.
Yeah, doesn't have a big heavy build, he's tall.
Yeah. So he's been Wow, he didn't play.
Do we have anything else?
I think that's it.
Dave and I went up to the Garrett Spillane
Oh,
today.
yes,
I don't know if we want to talk about that now.
sure,
or
why
wait.
not? What'd you see?
Where he put the posts up seemed further away than what
You're
he
supposed to
was
be, yeah.
suggesting that they would be, and I don't know, I thought it was kind of, it's so close to the vernal pools, which already seem to be impacted by the fact that they built a house there. Because you
Well,
hear the
not
vernal
only
pools
that-
down the street really well, and then like we saw some fairy shrimp, but we couldn't hear anything in the ones right there. So I thought, I don't know, my feeling was he bought the house knowing that they couldn't,
Basically,
assuming he was told about it, but like he bought the property, so I'm not.
Jane, yeah, Jane and I originally talked with him about, what the situation was, and recommended if he wants to make some changes to be looked at by the board, give us a plan, and he did, and he marked it up, and that's been distributed. But when we went out there, it seems like, and then Jane recommended to him, well, go out and actually, lay out what you show on the plan. And it seems to be a little bit more further out than originally we discussed. So between the 100-foot line and his proposed additional land to be used, and maybe the meadow he plans to put in there, got a little bit bigger than what was originally discussed. So I think we need to have another discussion, what Jane does,
Okay,
about pulling in some of it, not all of it, but pulling in some of it definitely is just a little bit too much.
Yeah.
He still has a good intention, so,
So he's only staked out in the field, he hasn't actually put anything in, right?
no.
No, he hasn't done it.
And what was his plan, to put in like a split rail fence or something like that, or?
Eventually, yes. Originally, it was along the 100-foot line. Really, the developer was supposed to do that, but of course he didn't. So
Surprise,
then he was
surprise.
going to have it put in, unless they're going to put it in later. But that split rail fence is still required.
So, but that's what you're saying, like where he's marked out, where that fence eventually could be, there's
It's
a little extra,
further-
okay, fair.
Further out. So,
Can I add a comment when I have a chance?
Please.
sure.
Well, when we went out there today, I've been feeling badly about it ever since because I always hear that first 100 feet on south-facing slopes is an important area, and that's why the commission has that in the regulations. And there were no wood frogs chorusing from that pond, and I know that pond has been very active in the past. And yet they were going crazy in the areas where we required the 100-foot vernal pool buffer, the other two vernal pools that are right adjacent to it. So I think it points out the fact that you really need to get that area vegetated as thickly as possible because the migrating metamorphs from the other pools will end up there probably. But I suspect that the population that bred in there may have been squashed, which is disturbing. And, I hate to say they told us so, but they told us so, the heritage programs and the vernal pool folks. So
Yeah,
I think the area that David and I had pointed out as being an area that could turn into a lawn behind the house, and that was already disturbed might be good. But the other part that they want to get closer to is closer to the pool and really needs to have a better buffer.
all right. So we can make a visit down there or have him come in again and discuss it more with a little bit more detail rather than approximately.
Yeah, and if you remember that this was taken off the table by the developer
Yep,
because
after he cut
it was
down
not
right-
jurisdictional,
Yeah,
the 100-foot thing.
yep. All right,
But, he wants to restore the area, and I think it'll be really nice to do it. It's just, I think maybe he's pinching it a little more than it should be, than David and I talked to him about.
all right. Very good. Anything else, Jane?
Oh, I should have said it when Bill was there. You mean on this or on something else? the Goodwin Drive property that was cut. It looks like they
Oh.
cut the
Yep.
lot next to it as well without being reviewed by the commission. I haven't looked at my plans yet, but that's what I believe happened.
I have photos of that area
Okay.
and where they went over.
I just went by later on today.
All right. Maybe you and I can go down there tomorrow afternoon. Will that work?
Okay, I have a site visit tomorrow afternoon already, but I could do it before that, actually, so that'd be good.
What time is your meeting?
It is at 3 o'clock, so if we went down there, what, around 2 or so?
I've got a meeting here at 2, so
Okay.
I was hoping to.
What time would sound good to you?
Okay, say 1 o'clock.
Okay,
Meet you down there.
I can make it too,
all right.
All right.
because I've walked that whole place.
Yeah. All right. All right. Anything else? Your motion?
Not for me.
The motion to close the meeting.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Good night, all.
Good night.
Jane doesn't think she can do Wednesday.